What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be doing a review roundup. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these where I squish a couple of reviews together here in one video to save some time in my life, and this month of December is going to be an incredibly busy month for me. If you guys have been following the channel, then you know that I have recently been accepted into a Critics Association, which has opened doors to me that I never had open before and has allowed me access to check out a lot of movies early. I have a lot of early screenings I'll be checking out this month to get you guys some early reviews here on the channel. And on top of that, I've actually been blessed to be sent a bunch of screeners, both digitally and physically, to talk about a bunch of movies that are currently in the conversation for award contention. And so it's a pretty awesome thing, but because of that, I'm a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of movies I need to watch and cover throughout the course of the month. So you are going to see a couple of review roundups. They're going to squish some of these reviews together in a bit of a shorter capacity, but I'm still going to talk about these films thoroughly and really get my thoughts out on these movies. And today we're talking about two movies, one that's actually just coming out later this week on December 8th that we're going to talk about a little bit early that I got to check out, as well as a film that's been making the rounds in theaters that's already out and people have had a lot to say on. So without further ado, let's start with the film that's coming out later this week that I got to check out a little bit early, and that film is called Fast Charlie. Directed by Philip Noyce and written by Richard Wenk, this film is based on a novel known as Gun Monkeys by Victor Gischler and stars people like Pierce Brosnan, Morena Baccarin, James Caan, Gbenga Akinagbe, and many more. And before we get too far into this review, I'd like to say a big thanks to those kind folks over at Vertical Entertainment who sent me over an early screener to check out Fast Charlie. When I initially saw that the director was Philip Noyce, I was pretty interested as he's directed films that I have enjoyed to different extents, like Salt, The Giver, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger. I was really interested to see what he was going to bring to the table here with Pierce Brosnan. And then in the writing department, like I mentioned, you have Richard Wenk, who's written things like the Equalizer films, The Expendables 2, The Magnificent Seven remake from 2016, and I was pretty interested just right out of the gate from the writing and the directing team, without a doubt. Then you have Pierce Brosnan in the lead role, and I was like, okay, cool, this has to probably at least be a straightforward, fun action movie. So let's talk about what this movie is all about. We're introduced to Pierce Brosnan's character, who is Charlie Swift, a man who is a hitman and who's part of a group of hitmen who are pretty close. They're almost like a family, and after a hit goes slightly wrong, where now this body needs to be identified, he ends up reaching out to the ex of this individual who's been killed, who's played by Morena Baccarin. She plays the character of Marcy, and together they work together to kind of uncover some things about her ex, kind of uncover some things about this hitman world, and most notably, because of the death of this individual, it's led to the hitman group that Pierce Brosnan is a part of actually being attacked, leading to deaths of individuals that he considers family. And now he's on a quest for vengeance against the main villain of this film, who's known as Beggar, who's played by Gbenga Akinagbe. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly at all in the intro or now, but yeah, that's pretty much the premise here. You got two opposing assassin groups. One has attacked Pierce Brosnan's group, and now he is building a bit of a romantic interest kind of relationship with Morena Baccarin's character. They're working together to try to uncover what they can to protect themselves and defeat this rival assassin group. That's pretty much all this movie has to offer, and unfortunately, I think it sounds more interesting than the film actually is, as I unfortunately was not a fan of Fast Charlie. If you're a fan of Pierce Brosnan or Morena Baccarin, I do think that the two of them are fine in the movie. They're giving performances that are similar to things you've seen before, but I don't necessarily think that the script is elevated in any way, shape, or form because of their performances, and so I almost don't even blame them, to be honest. You can feel like this was almost like a paycheck movie for them, at least that's what it felt like to me. You have two actors in this situation that are really well known and have been in some big movies and have given really fun, charismatic, and likable performances, so it goes to show that they are obviously good actors. But when it comes to this movie, I just felt like the script gave them nothing to do. It gave them nothing to really latch onto and be inspired by, and that ultimately led to this film feeling wildly uninspired, incredibly generic, oftentimes very aimless, whether it be the weak dialogue or the overall narrative kind of just feeling aimless at times. There really wasn't an abundance to this movie that ever made me want to continue watching or latch onto the characters. By the time the credits were rolling at the end, I genuinely didn't care at all about what was going on to and for our characters. I didn't really even feel any sense of conclusion when the movie came to an end. There is a sense of conclusion. Things do come to an end in a way that you would pretty much predict that they would, but there isn't anything about it that ever made me feel satisfied while watching. And if I'm completely honest, the movie's about like 90 minutes or so, and I watched it, and about halfway through, I was already completely bored and already losing interest. And by the time I got to the last 20 minutes, I had checked how much longer I had in the film multiple times. It's unfortunate because, like I said, you do have a director, writer, and a cast that are all well known for other greater projects that are at least more enjoyable, and that's what I was going into this hoping for. Just a straightforward, fun, action, espionage film with some, assassination kind of things going on here. But when it comes to the assassin side of things, it's just whatever. When it comes to the action, there's really nothing about it that's really gripping or exciting. There's really nothing about this film that's really stands out. In a lot of ways, it felt like an assassin narrative kind of created in a Hallmark movie, to be completely and utterly honest. And I almost feel like had the Hallmark themselves directed or produced a assassin storyline, it would at least still be a little bit more entertaining. This ultimately for me was bland and dry. There wasn't really much about this movie's narrative or characters that I ever found myself engaged by, and genuinely, I almost wish that I had more to say about this movie. I wish that there was some different levels of themes and storylines and character depth that I could break down here in this review. But unfortunately for me, Fast Charlie just kind of came and went. I'm already kind of forgetting it. My brain doesn't even really care about this movie to talk about it all that much. And I just don't know what to say about Fast Charlie, to be completely and utterly honest. The movie comes out on December 8th. I think this is a movie that's going to probably find its audience for people who are fans of Pierce Brosnan. But if you are a fan of Pierce Brosnan and you want to see him in something where he pulls out a gun and he's badass, there's literally dozens and dozens of other much better films that star him in it. Even Miranda Baccarin. I was just surprised to see actors of this caliber in a film that ultimately just felt so dull and so uninspired. And by the time the movie was over, I genuinely thought to myself, that movie is not going to be one I think about at all by the time I get to the end of this month, which is the end of the year. I think by the time we're at this point next year, I won't give a damn about Fast Charlie. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to a substantially better film, a movie that is currently in theaters that has been getting a lot of buzz, that a lot of people have been really hyped about, and that movie is Saltburn. Written and directed by Emerald Fennell, who did a film called Promising Young Women just a couple of years ago. This film stars people like Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi, Archie Madakwe, Richard E. Grant, Rosamund Pike, Allison Oliver, and many, many more. So Saltburn is a movie that I had seen the trailer for dozens of times at this point over the course of just going to theaters, and I was definitely interested to see what it was going to be all about. Of course, as I mentioned before, the director of this film, Emerald Fennell, did a film a couple of years ago called Promising Young Woman that got a lot of buzz. It was very well praised. I actually did not see it, to be completely and utterly honest, which is why there's not a review for it here on the channel, but I heard incredible things, and it was a huge, huge movie. And so when I heard that this director was going to be doing a new film, I was definitely curious to check it out, as it's his sophomore picture, and there was a lot of buzz already coming out from the film. I've seen some people hate this movie, and I've seen a lot of people love this film, with a lot of people calling it one of the better films of the year. I've seen people give this film things as low as half stars, and I've seen people give this film things as high as 5 stars on a consistent basis. There's a lot of conversation going on when it comes to Saltburn, and I think that this is a movie that is without a doubt incredibly well made, and a film that, whether or not you like it or not, is really going to be based on your personal taste. Now, I think that that's something you could say for all movies, but when it comes to the case of Saltburn, I think this is a film that is undeniably incredibly well made. Whether it be the cinematography, the performances throughout, with Barry Keoghan's performance at the center being easily one of the best performances of 2023, I think that goes without saying. I would be completely and utterly shocked if he is not in award contention for Best Actor when it comes to the Oscars and the various other award shows that we're going to be getting in the coming months. I would be absolutely surprised if Barry Keoghan's name is not mentioned in all of those awards, simply because he gives, without a doubt, one of the most just committed performances that I've ever seen. Now, whether or not you like his character is really going to depend on you and how you like the way he portrays the character, as one thing that this film has in common across all the characters is that all of them are wildly unlikable and both likable at times. You simply don't really know how to feel about the characters more often than not when you're watching this film, which is part of the intrigue and part of what made this film incredibly gripping to watch. The base premise of this film is we focus on an individual named Oliver Quick, who's played by Barry Keoghan. The movie opens up, he's come to college, he's a scholarship kid, and he just wants to feel included. Not too long into the film, he ends up building a rapport with this individual played by Jacob Elordi, known as Felix. Once they start to build this friendship, he's pretty much invited to his family's house, Felix's family's house, at a place called Saltburn. And when he gets there, it's this ginormous mansion. His family is completely, insanely rich. And he comes to this mansion to stay with Felix's family to find, without a doubt, one of the most eclectic families that we've ever seen in a movie. And once he's there, things start to unfold day after day as everybody that's a part of this family is incredibly wild. And what ensues in this film, without getting into spoilers, is just a lot of lust, a lot of drugs, a lot of excess, drinking. There is debauchery of all kinds when it comes to human life in this movie, as well as just a very gripping drama that consistently has you guessing where things are gonna go. The film is incredibly well paced. That's one thing I have to say about this movie, is that I never felt bored across the 2 hours and I think 11 minutes of this runtime. I was consistently glued to what was going on. And while there are slow moments in the film, and there are a couple of things that I didn't necessarily love about the film, I ultimately can say that I found it to be almost always incredibly well made. Whether it be the performances, as I mentioned before, the cinematography, the lighting, the aspect ratio of the film, everything about this film gives it its own identity that ultimately, without a doubt, is going to stick with me by the time we get to the end of the year and as years go on. Saltburn is without a doubt one of the most unique films that has come out in 2023. Whether you like it or not, I think that this film is undeniably something that needs to be in the conversation when it comes to some of the best or most unique films that 2023 has produced. I think Emerald Fennell at times almost undercuts the overall message that he's going for in this film by utilizing some pretty what the fuck moments at times, but I ultimately found that this film had a nice blend of surprise, shock, twist, as well as just intrigue at its core. While everything about this film didn't work for me on every level, and like I mentioned, there are some moments where I think that there are some what the fuck choices in terms of the characters and the story that sometimes undercut the film at times for me, I genuinely found this to be incredibly engaging to watch and really never found myself bored. And I was just so impressed by how committed all of the actors were in this film, giving us scenes that were filled with tension, filled with sexual tension, scenes that just felt wildly uncomfortable. I mean, this film pretty much runs the gambit of just different kinds of weird feelings that you can feel with the movie. It wasn't necessarily something I could say was pleasant per se, but it was consistently tension filled and just consistently giving you a sense of unease at times that I genuinely found myself gripped to. I found myself consistently intrigued to see where things were going to go, and I think that's the biggest praise I could give this film outside of Barry Keoghan's performance, which is just insane. I mean, the dude goes through multiple layers of a person throughout the course of this film, and if you've seen the marketing, you can tell something weird's gonna go on once he gets to this place called Saltburn with this eclectic family. You can tell that things are going to develop in a bit of a spicy manner, if you will, but as the movie progresses and you get to know these characters more and you get to know Barry Keoghan's character more, you're consistently kind of shocked at where things are going, whether you like it or not. It just seemed so bizarre, scene after scene after scene. And again, sometimes I do think, to the film's detriment, I do think there are elements about this film that ultimately maybe undercut some of the things that the movie was trying to say. And speaking on the things the movie's trying to say, it's a movie littered with metaphors and symbolism to the point where I know for 110% fact, having only seen the film once, that I'm going to need to see this movie again, maybe even a third time, to even scrape the surface of being able to really ingest all of the different things this film has to offer on a symbolism side of things. But as far as the biggest takeaway I had about this film is the idea of obsession in a way, right? We live in a world now where people can become obsessed with an individual, whether they love them, hate them, or it's just a love-hate thing online specifically, and just in the world. We live in a world where people want attention. We live in a world where people are willing to do everything and anything for attention. They're willing to lie. They're willing to become different people. They're willing to, completely change who they are just to fit in with a group of people and feel accepted. This film has a huge element about this film that has to do with being accepted and the lengths that an individual will go to in order to be accepted. And at times, you feel for the characters, and at times you're disgusted by the characters, and by times you're really just put off by the characters. And there comes a point as the movie's going that your outlook on all of these individual characters is consistently changing. There are times where you might find a character to be likable and charming, and the next scene you could literally be repulsed by them. And I think that that's part of what kept this film really engaging. It really does kind of dig deep into kind of the sad state of mental health in the current world. It definitely digs deep into the level of obsession that we're seeing in the world, especially with things online, especially with celebrities or any sort of public figure to any degree. People who might love somebody also might hate them and might also have this sense of wanting to watch them burn, and will still almost love them in watching them be burned, even if they want to see them grow as well and want to be a part of them. They might want the attention from an individual, but also love the idea of being involved in their demise. It's a weird thing. That's kind of what I took from the film. If you guys think if you've seen the film and you think that I am just way off and I'm thinking too deep into the film, then please feel free to let me know down below, because like I mentioned, I think this is a movie that's going to take multiple viewings to really cement my overall opinion on it. But when it comes down to Fast Charlie and Saltburn, without a doubt, Saltburn is the one to watch. It's already been out for a little bit, but yeah, I just wanted to do a quick review roundup to talk about these two movies, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So as I mentioned before, Fast Charlie starring Pierce Brosnan will be hitting select theaters on December 8th and on digital for rental, purchase, and all that jazz. I'm definitely curious to hear what people have to say about this movie. It just didn't work for me. It ultimately just felt like a generic movie with some big names in it that ultimately had nothing narratively or character-wise to really latch on to, nothing thematically to even really dissect, as you could tell from this video. And it's a shame with the cast that they had and the director and writer who have done films that I've actually genuinely enjoyed. This one just did not work for me. But when it comes to a movie that I think you absolutely should watch, it's Saltburn. It's currently playing in theaters. Whether you watch it on streaming later down the line or you go and watch it in theaters, I definitely can't wait to hear what people have to say about both of these movies. So if you're a fan of either one of these movies, you didn't like either one of these movies, and that's what brought you to this review, whatever the case may be, leave any and all thoughts down below. Hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, more early reviews, and more reviews of some of these big award contenders as we get to the end of 2023, and I'll definitely see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.